Bella, a lively young woman, walked down the bustling streets of Kampala with her soon-to-be sister-in-law, Nora, by her side. The sun was shining, and Bella's excitement was contagious. "I can't believe I'm getting married in just 3 weeks," she exclaimed, her eyes sparkling with joy. She had been with Richard for 3 years, and now their dream was finally coming true. Nora laughed, giving Bella a warm smile. "You deserve this, Bella. Richard's perfect for you." They soon arrived at the wedding dress shop, where Bella tried on gown after gown, twirling in front of the mirror and giggling like a child. The shop was filled with lace, silk, and delicate fabrics that made her feel like a princess. When she finally found the dress, her eyes softened with happiness as she imagined her future with Richard. "Just a few more weeks, and I'll be Mrs. Richard," she thought, admiring her reflection. As they left the store, Bella's phone buzzed. The number was unfamiliar, but with her cheerful voice, she answered. "Hello? Is this Miss Bella Richards?" A stern voice on the other end asked. "Yes, this is Bella. Who's speaking?" "I'm calling from Malago Hospital. I'm so sorry, Miss Richards, but there's been an accident. Richard didn't make it." In an instant, Bella's world fell apart. Her knees grew weak, and her hand trembled as the phone slipped from her grasp. "No, no, that can't be," she choked, her face crumpling in despair. Nora quickly held her, worry etched on her face. "What happened, Bella?" Nora whispered gently. Bella's sobs were her only reply. "He's gone. Richard's gone," she managed, her voice breaking as grief swallowed her joy. The days that followed were dark. Bella locked herself away, unable to bear the sight of her wedding dress, the rings, or anything that reminded her of Richard. Slowly, however, she realized she couldn't stay in her grief forever. One evening, with tears in her eyes, she looked at her mother. "I need a fresh start, Ma. I can't stay here anymore. Everything here reminds me of him." Her mother nodded, though it pained her to let Bella go. "Where will you go, my daughter?" "Kampala," Bella replied softly. "I'll find work there and call you when I'm settled." With a heavy heart and a suitcase in hand, Bella left for the city, hoping that distance would ease her pain. Kampala was vibrant, full of life and noise. Bella found a small apartment and soon began searching for work. One day, she stumbled upon a job ad for a housemaid in the mansion of a wealthy man named Jonathan. Despite the painful memories the name brought, she applied and got the job. Her new employer, Jonathan, was a notorious billionaire. Heartbroken from a past love, he had given up on trust and romance. When Bella started working for him, she stayed professional and kept her distance, never letting her emotions show. Jonathan noticed her coldness but found it intriguing. One evening, as he kissed a lady in the living room, he glanced over at Bella, expecting some reaction, but she only served drinks, her face blank and unbothered. "Doesn't this bother you, Bella?" he asked, slightly amused. "No, sir. I'm just here to serve," she replied with a polite smile. Jonathan chuckled, intrigued. Most women would at least look annoyed, but Bella simply walked away, indifferent. A few days later, Jonathan received an unexpected call from his mother. "Jonathan, I found the perfect girl for you. I'm coming next week so you can meet her." Feeling trapped, he blurted, "Mommy, I already have a fiancé." His mother gasped with joy. "Why didn't you tell me? I'm so proud of you, my son. I'll come meet her next week." As he hung up, Jonathan realized he was in trouble. He needed a fake fiancé, and fast. "Bella," he called, finding her in the kitchen. "Yes, sir. I need you to pretend to be my fiancé," he said, watching her reaction. Bella's eyebrows shot up. "Excuse me? I told my mother I'm engaged. She's coming, and I need someone to play the part. I'll pay you well." Bella crossed her arms, unimpressed. "And why should I help you?" "Because you're the only woman I know who's not affected by me," he replied with a sly grin. After some thought, Bella sighed. "Fine, but remember, no touching, no funny ideas. This is just a job." Over the next few days, Jonathan coached Bella on the details of their relationship. They practiced calling each other baby and darling. But Bella always said it with a stiff expression, her face refusing to soften. Jonathan laughed. You look like you'd rather punch me than call me darling. Try to smile, at least. Bella rolled her eyes, forcing a stiff smile, which only made him chuckle more. Despite her reluctance, he transformed her look, dressing her in elegant clothes and styling her hair. When she saw herself in the mirror, she barely recognized the woman staring back. "Not bad, huh?" he said, admiring her. She shrugged, but there was a hint of pride in her eyes. When Jonathan's mother arrived, she beamed at Bella. "Oh, you're beautiful," she exclaimed, pulling her into a hug. Bella managed a polite smile, feeling the weight of her new role. Jonathan wrapped an arm around her, pulling her close. "Isn't she perfect, Mommy?" he said, pressing a light kiss to Bella's cheek. Bella barely flinched, holding her smile in place. She played the role perfectly, keeping up her cool demeanor. Each night, Jonathan's mother would insist on them sitting together, sometimes holding hands, and Bella would force herself to look lovingly at him. But behind the mask, her heart remained locked away, untouched by the charade. As the days passed, Jonathan's mother seemed convinced by their act. Yet Bella remained the same, reserved and distant, while Jonathan grew more curious about the walls she kept so firmly in place. One evening Bella gathered her few belongings, each item feeling heavier than it should. The lingering scent of roses from their engagement dinners filled the air, a bittersweet reminder of the past few weeks. Every step she took reminded her of moments she'd never anticipated. Moments of laughter, of warmth, of vulnerability that felt too real to ignore. Jonathan stood by the window, hands tucked into his pockets, his gaze distant as he looked out at the city lights. The silence between them was thick, the kind that carried all the words they didn't dare say. Finally, he broke the silence, his voice quiet, almost vulnerable. "So, this is it?" he asked, not looking at her. "Just like that, it's over?" Bella paused, her fingers tracing the edge of a glass on the table, grounding herself before she could crumble. She took a deep breath, her voice steady but soft. "We both knew it would end. It was never meant to be real, Jonathan." Her tone was firm, but there was a hint of something else, a sadness she couldn't completely hide, even though she desperately wanted to. He turned to look at her, his expression unreadable but his eyes searching, as if trying to find some sign of regret on her face. "It may not have been real," he said slowly, "but it felt like something, didn't it? Like maybe it could be." She looked away, unwilling to meet his gaze. Admitting that it had meant something would only make leaving harder, and she couldn't afford to give in to the idea of something so fragile. "We both have our own lives to go back to," she replied, her voice a little colder than she intended. "And I've learned not to hold on to things that don't belong to me." The words stung him, though he knew she was right. He wanted to say more, to reach out, but he couldn't bring himself to break past the walls she'd built so carefully around her heart. For a moment, he wondered what had made her this way, what hurt she was hiding behind her stoic mask. She had let him in just enough for him to glimpse the pieces of herself she kept hidden, and yet, those pieces were slipping away from him now. As she turned to leave, he took a step forward, his voice softening. "Bella, you're the only person who's ever looked at me and not seen a rich, spoiled man. You never wanted anything from me, and maybe that's why. I don't want you to go." She froze, her back still facing him. His words stirred something in her, something she had tried hard to bury, something she had denied for so long. Slowly, she turned, her gaze steady as she looked at him. "Jonathan, we were both playing roles. You're the wealthy bachelor who doesn't believe in love, and I'm just the housemaid who kept my distance. It's better if we don't pretend this was anything more." He took a step closer, his expression unguarded, vulnerable. "But what if it could be?" Bella shook her head, forcing herself to stay composed. "Jonathan, don't do this. You know as well as I do that we're too different. You and I, we're from different worlds. Worlds only matter if we let them," he replied quietly. "Maybe we're different, but for some reason, I can't just go back to how things were." She looked down, a small tear slipping down her cheek before she quickly wiped it away. "It's not that simple. You may be able to live your life without getting hurt, but I can't. I've already lost too much." He reached out, gently taking her hand, his touch warm and reassuring. "Bella, I know I've been a fool, and maybe I don't deserve to ask you for anything, but just don't leave without knowing that I care." Her resolve wavered, the walls she'd built starting to crack. For a brief moment, she allowed herself to feel the weight of what she was leaving behind, the possibility of what could have been. The mansion had felt like a cage to her when she first arrived, but now, as she looked around, she realized it had somehow become a place of comfort, of familiarity. She had shared laughter within these walls, moments of silence that spoke volumes. She had found parts of herself she thought were lost. But then, her heart reminded her of the pain she'd endured before, the love she'd lost. She couldn't allow herself to be vulnerable, not when she knew how much it hurt to lose everything you cared about. With a soft sigh, she pulled her hand away, fighting to keep her composure. "Goodbye, Jonathan," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. She turned and walked to the door, each step feeling heavier than the last, as if the weight of her unspoken feelings threatened to pull her back. Jonathan watched her go, his heart aching in a way he hadn't felt in years. For the first time, he realized what it meant to care for someone beyond his own wants, beyond his own needs. Bella had left a mark on him, one he knew wouldn't fade easily. He had thought he understood people, that he understood relationships, but Bella had shown him a side of himself he hadn't known existed. As the door closed behind her, Jonathan let out a long, defeated sigh. The mansion felt emptier than ever, the silence almost unbearable. He moved to the window, watching as Bella's figure disappeared into the night, a finality settling over him. She was gone, and he was left alone, with only the memories of the woman who had walked into his life and shown him a glimpse of something he hadn't believed in, something he wasn't sure he'd ever feel again. Bella walked down the quiet street, her heels clicking softly against the pavement. The tears she'd held back finally began to fall, silent and heavy, each one a reminder of what she was leaving behind. She had promised herself she wouldn't get attached, but Jonathan's kindness, his persistence, had touched a part of her she thought was dead. For the first time in years, she had let someone see her scars, and that terrified her. As she reached the corner, she looked back at the mansion one last time, her heart aching with the knowledge that, for a brief moment, she had let herself believe in something new, something real. But she couldn't afford to be vulnerable again. So, with a deep breath, she turned and walked into the night, vowing to bury this memory like she had buried so many others. And Jonathan? He stood by the window, his heart heavy, wondering if he'd ever meet someone like Bella again. The house was quiet, filled only with the faint scent of her perfume, a reminder of what he had lost. He knew that, in the end, it wasn't the money or the status that mattered. It was her, the woman who had looked at him and seen him for who he really was, the woman who had made him wish, even for a moment, that he could be better. In the days that followed, he returned to his old life, but something was different. He went to the same parties, met the same people, yet he couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing. Bella's presence lingered in the corners of his mind, her calm strength, her quiet resilience. She had left a void that no one else seemed able to fill. As time went on, he realized that she had changed him in ways he hadn't expected, and though they had parted, he carried a small hope that one day, perhaps, their paths would cross again. Until then, he would hold on to the memory of the woman who had taught him that love, real love, was worth the risk, even if it left you vulnerable. And Bella? She moved forward, one step at a time, carrying the memory of Jonathan with her, tucked safely in a corner of her heart. She knew she might never see him again, but she also knew that, for a brief, beautiful moment, she had let herself believe in love once more. And that, she decided, was enough. Each step was a little lighter, her heart a little less guarded, and as she moved on with her life, she carried with her the quiet knowledge that, sometimes, love was worth the pain. If this story resonated with you, and you're looking for more uplifting and inspiring tales, please like this video and subscribe to my channel. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. Together, let's explore stories that highlight the incredible strength of the human spirit and the blessings life brings. Thank you for joining me on this journey. I'm excited to share more stories with you in the next video. Remember, embrace the positivity around you and believe in the incredible beauty of life. Let's keep inspiring one another.